work in the roadmap up to the summit declaration. So, Energy Transitions Working Group is one of those groups under the Sherpa track, which is very significant in view of its implications, its footprint, and its importance and significance. And in Government of India, Ministry of Power is leading and coordinating the Energy Transition Working Group. We are working with our sister ministries, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Ministry of Coal, Ministry of Mines, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. And we also work closely with Niti Aayog. So, initially we floated a issue note. That is the prerogative of the presidency, that we can bring out our priorities for discussions on the table for setting the agenda. In the area of Energy Transitions Working Group, we had floated an issue note which had 6 priorities. First is addressing the technology gaps for successful energy transition. Second is the mobilizing low-cost finance for deployment of those critical technologies. Third is addressing the requirements of energy security, diversified supply chains, and transnational grid interconnections. Fourth priority is to accelerate energy efficiency measures and initiatives required to address the hard-to-abate sectors. In the fifth priority, we have shared the agenda on fuels for future. There are 2 important fuels for India. One is the biofuels. You are all aware the progress we are making in the ethanol blending. And second, under the fuels of future is green hydrogen. It's very important. We have had a national green hydrogen mission. And sixth priority is not important. Is very important. Is the just transition and universal access. That in the process of a transition, nobody should be left behind. Every citizen, every human being on the planet should have access to clean energy, and transition should be such that it is just transition. There are implications in transition, so those should be taken care. Based on those 6 priority items, in the first 2 meetings, we had a lineup of good presentations from international organizations, from other think tanks, and then based on the consensus which was there in the first meeting, we presented the key elements of the draft communique in the second meeting. Based on the discussions in second meeting, we have circulated a draft communique. This is a communique for the energy ministers. Energy ministerial meeting is scheduled in Goa in July, and this is 3rd working group meeting. We will have a 4th working group meeting in Goa to be followed, which will feed into the energy ministers meeting. So whatever the working group would be able to arrive at a consensus and would recommend, that will be considered by the energy ministers, and they will issue a energy ministerial communique. Will be one of the inputs for the leaders' declaration in September. So we are working on those timelines. In addition, we have also commissioned 13 studies on those relevant areas by expert organizations, and those studies reports are being presented in the side events. Like in this meeting, 3rd meeting, we are having 6 side events. 3 side events today, they happened. 2 will be there tomorrow, and 1 will be there on the day after tomorrow. So those are side events in which, apart from the government delegations, the industry representatives, experts, they come and participate. So it's a knowledge building for discussions in the main working group. And so today we had this inaugural of the working group meeting, and we were fortunate that we had Shri Rao Sahab Patil Danve, Honorable Minister of State for Railways, Coal and Mines from Government of India. He addressed the gathering, and thereafter we had these 3 side events. One was on the biofuel, second was on the low-cost financing, and third was on the just transition, the roadmap for just transition. And tomorrow we have two side events, one on the offshore wind and one on the, I think, hard to abate sectors. And day after we have one on the lifestyle, that is the responsible consumption. And today we also had very good presentations. From India side, we had a presentation on life mission, which has been launched by Honorable Prime Minister, that is lifestyle for environment. So we presented to the working group that responsible consumption is the need of the hour. You cannot keep on supplying energy. Everybody, all developed countries also should move for responsible consumption. And our MNRE presented on the green hydrogen roadmap and the need for common standards. And in the meeting per se, this draft communique is being discussed and negotiated para by para, which is a closed door proceedings. And we will then continue this discussion in the Goa meeting also. That is all from our side. Now, if you have any questions, we will be happy to answer. Yeah.
Non-conventional renewable addition program, and of course, hydrogen has also taken a central point. So, how the center is coordinating the states and comparing with this G20 initiative? What's the progress on that front? And then the second question, as you rightly talked about, there has been much talk of that capacity addition here in India, then the bilateral talks, and that, the SAARC initiatives and whatnot. Considering the G20 here, what's happening also on that front? Because, there is definitely a relevance with this ongoing Ukraine-Russia war, and there has been much of constraints on energy sources. These are my two questions.
Green hydrogen mission, its objective is to decarbonize industrial and transport sectors. What states have been doing so far was mainly for the supply of electricity. So this is the using renewable energy for producing green hydrogen or green ammonia, which can be used to replace the grey hydrogen, which is produced from fossil fuels, so that you have less emissions, for example, in fertilizers, refineries, steel and all. Also in shipping and aviation. And so that is a different usage, which is very important going long forward. Capacity addition, you're talking, so we are on track to have adequate capacity within India and also having cooperation with our neighboring countries so that they also develop, and we also, India will have adequate capacity to meet its demand. And that way we have a forum called BIMSTEC for cooperation, on which we are proceeding. We also have our bilateral arrangements with Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan and Sri Lanka. Yeah.
Sir, talk about the universal access. Of course, it is a good thought. Considering this, when we see the affordability and the pricing, as compared to the crude oil, which is imported and depends on the international market and the rupee value. So to make this access available to each and every citizen, what kind of mechanism would be taken care of in terms of pricing control and how it will work in hydrogen fuel or green fuel, whatsoever it is?
Say, in energy markets, including electricity markets, the market design has to be such that it promotes competitive, cost-effective procurement of energy. Say, you can only ensure that whatever you procure or produce, it is cost-effective and markets are competitive. There are no entry barriers. But beyond a point, you cannot control energy prices because it is reflective of, say, your international situation, your own resources and production cost. So, one part is the important is the procurement or production of the energy in a cost-effective manner. Second part, design of markets. Third part, affordability. You know that if investments are required and they are being made, they need to recover their efficient costs. For recovering costs, whatever is the tariff required, that should be allowed to prevail. The government has a role, especially in power sector. We have the whole methodology for giving subsidy in tariff. Say for the sections of society to whom the government thinks it appropriate to subsidize, they can give subsidies. But subsidies have to be efficiently targeted so that only the needy people get subsidy. Yeah.
Sir, as a complement Q Prime, so my question is basically an additional question to this. like there is a dichotomy. One, if there is a demand, and second of pricing. So how you are planning to balance this out? I mean, capacity will only be created when there is a demand, and demand will not be there as long as the prices come down. So as of now, what is the kind of capacity that you have approved in the country? Because a lot of private companies are going out and they are setting up from India. So how much kind of gigawatt is being planned in India? What is the timeline? And in terms of demand and pricing, what